Have you ever wondered why some people, no matter the chaos around them, remain untouchable? Why certain leaders, executives, or influencers seem immune to betrayal, backstabbing, or scandal? What's their secret, and is it something anyone can learn? Today, we're going to pull back the curtain on one of the most misunderstood and powerful truths about human nature and power, a raw, unfiltered blueprint that's been shaping history's greatest figures for centuries. This isn't your typical, watered-down leadership advice or feel-good motivational talk. This is the real, ruthless art of power, the kind that decides who survives and who gets destroyed. If you want to stop being blindsided, to understand the invisible games happening in every boardroom, office, or social circle, then this video is for you. Before we dive in, I want to invite you to smash that like button, share this video with your friends and colleagues. And if you want to support the channel's mission to uncover truth and strategy, don't forget to subscribe and hit the notification bell so you never miss a powerful insight. Also, if you find a value here exceptional, your generosity through YouTube's Super Thanks donation can help us keep bringing content that matters. Now, imagine a world where perception isn't just a reflection of reality, it creates reality. Where the way you carry yourself, the silence you hold, and the secrets you keep wield more power than any amount of money or weapons. Let me introduce you to a man named Jesse Buia in 1503. He was the most feared figure in Italy, a military commander, a duke, a strategist so perfect Machiavelli himself might have envied him. But just 4 years later, he was found dead, betrayed by those he called allies. No warnings, no signs, just a cold, brutal end. This story is not just a historical curiosity. It's a perfect allegory for how power works and how it can vanish in an instant when you don't control perception, loyalty, and reaction. Over the next half hour, I'm going to walk you through the real lessons from Machiavelli's Prince, stripped of all the academic sugarcoating. We'll explore how perception is your greatest weapon, why silence can speak louder than words, and how loyalty is never about love, but leverage and calculation. You'll hear about Michael, a Harvard-educated rising star, whose single moment of vulnerability set off a chain reaction that pushed him out of the company. His story will show you why appearing strong is often more important than being strong. We'll look at Stalin, who mastered silence to control some of the most critical wartime conferences. And we'll dissect how Al Capone's calculated retaliation outsmarted rivals and changed the course of gangster history. But this isn't just history or stories. I'm going to give you actionable strategies you can apply today, whether you're trying to navigate a tricky workplace, build your business, or simply survive social politics. You'll learn how to build leverage so people depend on you in ways that go beyond liking or friendship. How to respond strategically rather than react emotionally, turning threats into opportunities. How to wield power invisibly, controlling outcomes from the shadows without attracting enemies or envy. This video will transform the way you see every room you enter, every conversation you have, and every decision you make. By the end, you'll understand why the most powerful people are often the quietest, the most controlled, and the most unpredictable. So, if you're ready to stop being the target and start being the untouchable, hit that like button now, share this video to arm your network with these truths, and subscribe for more deep dives into power, strategy, and survival in the modern world. And if you want to support this channel and help me create more content that cuts through the noise, consider leaving a super thanks donation. Your support is what keeps this channel alive and growing. Let's get into the raw, unfiltered reality of power and how you can harness it to become untouchable. In the ruthless world of power, stories like that of Jesse Buia, whether entirely true or partly imagined, serve as stark reminders of the unforgiving nature of influence and control. Picture a man who, in 1503, ruled Italy's military and political arenas with an iron fist. By 1507, that same man lay dead in a ditch, betrayed not by enemies, but by those he trusted most. This is the harsh reality that Machiavelli's writings aim to expose, stripped of romanticism and softened versions often taught in classrooms. the real Machiavelli, the one who lived and breathed the violent politics of Renaissance Italy, understood power as a brutal game where perception often outweighed reality and survival depended on mastering the art of control, deception, and strategic silence. The Machiavelli familiar to most of us is filtered through centuries of reinterpretation, sanitized for textbooks and academic discussions. This school version is about ethics, virtues, and political theory in a vacuum. But the Machiavelli of history, the hardcore of Machiavelli, was a man who advised rulers on how to maintain authority amid shifting alliances, betrayals, and constant threats. He didn't just write about power. He wrote a manual on survival in a world where loyalty was transactional, strength was as much about appearances as it was about force, and hesitation could be fatal. Understanding power in this raw, unfiltered form is not merely an academic exercise. It is a critical survival skill in today's world. We like to believe that modern institutions, corporations, governments, social networks operate on fairness and transparency. Yet beneath the surface, the same ruthless dynamics persist. The difference now is subtlety and sophistication, but the stakes remain high. Recognizing these dynamics can mean the difference between rising to leadership or being crushed quietly and efficiently. Take the example of Michael, a bright Harvard graduate climbing the corporate ladder. To outsiders, Michael was a rising star, confident and capable. But in a single meeting, he revealed vulnerability. He admitted struggling with a major project. That admission, though seemingly innocent and human, triggered a quiet campaign against him. His closest colleague, Sarah, began informing executives that Michael was overwhelmed and unreliable. Within months, Michael found himself pushed out, not because he lacked talent, but because he appeared weak at a critical moment. This scenario echoes Machiavelli's core lesson. Power is as much about perception as it is about reality. Those who appear weak invite attack. The wolves don't strike because you are weak, they strike because you look weak. The skillful wielders of power understand this perfectly. They know how to project an image of invulnerability regardless of internal struggles. This mastery of appearance, this ability to mask weakness with confidence, creates an aura of strength that deters attacks before they come. It's a survival tactic refined through centuries of political upheaval and betrayal, from Renaissance Italy to modern boardrooms. In this sense, Machiavelli's Prince is less a guide to tyranny and more a blueprint for anyone who wants to navigate power structures safely and successfully. Moreover, power is never static. It is fluid and fragile, contingent on the perceptions of others. Loyalty is a fragile currency, often exchanged for convenience and advantage rather than genuine allegiance. Historical examples abound. Julius Caesar, stabbed 23 times by senators, including his trusted friend Brutus, demonstrates how even the closest alliances can turn deadly when self-interest outweighs loyalty. In the corporate world, colleagues who clink glasses on Friday may update their resumes by Saturday, ready to claim your position. Understanding this brutal reality is essential to developing resilience and strategic thinking. This is where the difference between knowledge and skill becomes glaringly apparent. It's not enough to study power from a distance. One must internalize its lessons and learn to act decisively, calmly, and strategically. This means mastering the art of silence and observation, knowing when to speak and when to withhold information. It means cultivating leverage, whether through exclusive access to resources, information, or relationships that makes you indispensable. It means preparing for betrayal, not as a possibility, but as an eventuality, and planning your moves accordingly. In essence, modern power dynamics demand more than theoretical understanding. They require the practical application of Machiavelli's unfiltered wisdom. To survive and thrive, one must appear untouchable, maintain control over one's image, react with calculated precision, and always anticipate the shifting tides of loyalty and influence. Ignoring these lessons invites downfall, while embracing them can elevate you beyond the reach of ordinary threats. This stark, pragmatic perspective on power may unsettle those who prefer idealism or trust. But in the real world, whether in politics, business, or social interactions, power is a game played by those who understand its rules intimately and are willing to play without illusions. Jesse Bouilla's story, whether fact or fable, reminds us that the price of failure in this game is often fatal, and the stakes have never been higher. Power starts with perception, and perception is built on image. The core lesson here is simple but often ignored. Never show weakness in front of those who might exploit it. This idea, captured perfectly in the phrase, "never bleed in front of wolves," underscores one of the most fundamental principles of power dynamics. Your outward appearance can determine your fate, regardless of what's happening inside. People don't just respond to your actions. They respond to what they believe about your actions, your confidence, and your strength. This means that even when you are struggling internally, it is crucial to project strength and control. Showing vulnerability to the wrong people can invite attacks, erode your influence, and ultimately lead to your downfall. Consider the story of Michael, a Harvard-educated rising star in his firm. On the surface, he was everything one could hope for: smart, driven, and well-liked. Yet, everything began to unravel when, in a moment of honesty during a team meeting, he admitted he was struggling with a major project. It might seem like a human moment, a plea for help, but in the ruthless environment of corporate politics, it was a fatal mistake. That admission was noted, and soon his colleague Sarah began quietly feeding executives a narrative of Michael's weakness, painting him as someone who couldn't handle the pressure. Within 2 months, Michael was effectively pushed out of the company. His downfall wasn't because he was incompetent in fact. He was highly capable, but because he appeared vulnerable when he shouldn't have. The lesson here is crystal clear. Vulnerability in power structures isn't just a personal struggle. It's a liability. Machiavelli, centuries before Michael's story, understood this instinctively. In his treatise, The Prince, he emphasizes the importance of appearance in maintaining power. He argues that it is better to appear strong and decisive than to actually be strong in moments of doubt or weakness. The public does not have access to your inner thoughts or feelings. They only judge what they see. If your image is one of strength and control, people will believe in your power, and that belief becomes a self-fulfilling prophecy. Conversely, if you reveal your struggles, even in small ways, you risk undermining the very foundation of your authority. Machiavelli's philosophy is harsh but pragmatic. He suggests that leaders must craft a persona that commands respect and fear, even if that persona masks inner uncertainty or vulnerability. This is not about deceit for deceit's sake, but about survival in a world where appearances often dictate outcomes. For Machiavelli, the ideal leader is one who is able to maintain a facade of unwavering strength, knowing that this perception deters enemies and commands loyalty. The leader who bleeds publicly invites enemies to strike. This principle applies not only to rulers, but to anyone who navigates hierarchical or competitive environments, from corporate executives to team leaders to entrepreneurs. The ability to project confidence, decisiveness, and control creates an aura that others will hesitate to challenge. In Michael's case, his momentary admission of struggle shattered this aura and opened the door to his removal. Had he managed to conceal his difficulties and project unwavering confidence, he might have kept his position and eventually overcome the obstacles. Moreover, controlling your image is about more than just masking weakness. It's about actively crafting the narrative others see. This means mastering body language, tone of voice, choice of words, and even timing. Every interaction becomes an opportunity to reinforce your image as someone who is competent and in control. When you walk into a room, your posture, eye contact, and demeanor speak volumes before you say a word. When you speak, your tone must convey certainty, even if internally you feel uncertain. This is not about being dishonest, but about managing perceptions strategically to ensure your survival and success. The psychological impact of appearing strong cannot be overstated. Humans are wired to respond to cues of dominance and vulnerability. When you appear strong, others instinctively respect you, and some even fear the consequences of crossing you. When you appear vulnerable, you invite scrutiny, second-guessing, and ultimately attack. This is not a cynical view, but a realistic understanding of human nature and social dynamics. In practical terms, this means that you should never publicly bleed, never reveal your doubts, fears, or failures in a way that empowers others to exploit them. This extends beyond the workplace into social media and casual conversations. Complaining openly, airing grievances, or showing emotional distress to people who don't need to know can weaken your position. Instead, endure hardships privately while maintaining an exterior of resilience. This does not mean suppressing emotions altogether. It means choosing carefully when and where to express vulnerability. The ability to maintain this balance is a skill and often requires conscious practice. It may mean rehearsing difficult conversations, controlling reactions, or developing a mindset that separates internal feelings from external expression. It also means recognizing that sometimes appearing untouchable is more important than being loved or even understood. Machiavelli famously stated, "It is better to be feared than loved if you cannot be both." This reflects the brutal reality that power is rarely granted by goodwill alone. It often demands respect grounded in strength and the perception of control. The paradox is that this external projection of strength often requires an internal fortress of resilience. You must build mental and emotional strength to withstand the pressure of maintaining the image while struggling beneath the surface. This inner strength can be cultivated through self-awareness, reflection, and sometimes professional support. But without this internal support, the exterior facade risks cracking, leading to visible weakness and potential downfall. In today's hyper-connected world, where social media and instant communication make private struggles more visible than ever, controlling your image has become even more critical. A single misstep or moment of vulnerability can be amplified and exploited. The stakes are higher, but so are the opportunities for those who master the art of perception management. Powerful figures across history have embodied this principle. Winston Churchill, for example, projected unwavering confidence and resolve during World War II, even in the darkest hours. His public image galvanized a nation and deterred enemies, despite the immense personal and national struggles behind the scenes. Similarly, modern leaders and CEOs often speak of "fake it till you make it," highlighting the importance of projecting success and strength even before it is fully achieved. Ultimately, controlling your image is not about deception for personal gain alone. It is a strategic necessity to survive and succeed in competitive environments. Machiavelli's advice, though centuries old, remains profoundly relevant. Power depends as much on what others see and believe as on what you actually are. Mastering this balance is the first step toward becoming untouchable, the first shield against betrayal, and the foundation upon which all other strategies of power are built. In the realm of power, silence is often misunderstood as weakness or indecision. Yet, nothing could be further from the truth. Silence is one of the most potent tools a powerful person wields, and the ability to master it can elevate someone far above their rivals. The old saying, "Silence is strategy," captures this perfectly. Those who are truly powerful are rarely the loudest in the room. They're the ones who choose their words carefully, speak sparingly, and observe relentlessly. They understand that in silence lies control, and in control lies power. Consider the famous example of Joseph Stalin during the Allied conferences of World War II. At gatherings dominated by leaders like Winston Churchill and Franklin D. Roosevelt, who often engaged in long speeches and passionate debates, Stalin was remarkably quiet. His silence unnerved the diplomats and leaders around him, making them uncertain of his thoughts and intentions. This quiet observation was not a sign of ignorance or lack of ideas. Instead, It was a deliberate tactic that gave him a psychological edge. By speaking less, Stalin forced others to reveal more, expose their strategies, and maintained an aura of unpredictability that kept everyone on edge. When Stalin finally spoke, his words carried more weight because they were rare and calculated. The result was that he often got exactly what he wanted by the end of these conferences, not because of the volume of his speech, but because of the precision and timing of his contributions. Silence creates space for observation and analysis. When someone talks too much, they not only give away their thoughts, but also reveal their insecurities, intentions, and weaknesses. Every word spoken is a potential weapon for others to exploit. Powerful individuals understand this and choose to remain silent to avoid handing over ammunition to their opponents. They listen carefully, assess the dynamics in the room, and wait for the perfect moment to act or speak. This strategic silence keeps others guessing and heightens their sense of unease, which is a form of psychological leverage. Moreover, silence can create mystery and intrigue. People naturally want to fill the void created by silence, often projecting their fears, assumptions, or hopes onto the quiet individual. This ambiguity makes it difficult for others to pin down the person's true motives or strategies, increasing that person's power in negotiations or conflicts. When a leader remains inscrutable, others are forced to tread carefully, wary of provoking an unpredictable response. This deliberate opacity is a shield that protects the powerful from direct attacks. This principle applies not only to political leaders, but to anyone seeking to wield influence effectively. In boardrooms, for example, the most powerful executives are often not those who dominate the conversation, but those who speak infrequently yet decisively. They watch how others interact, identify alliances and fractures, and use this information to steer decisions subtly. Their silence is a form of control, signaling confidence and restraint and discouraging challenges. In daily life, this approach can transform personal and professional interactions. Instead of rushing to fill awkward pauses or defend oneself aggressively during disagreements, maintaining silence can shift the power dynamic. When confronted, pausing before responding, lowering the volume, or responding with questions rather than statements can unsettle challengers. This calm, measured silence communicates that you are in control and that your reactions are deliberate, not impulsive. The power of observation, paired with silence, is equally critical. Silent individuals often become keen observers, noticing details others miss. They read body language, tone shifts, and unspoken cues, gaining insights that loud talkers overlook. This deep understanding allows them to anticipate moves, exploit weaknesses, and maneuver with greater precision. In essence, silence sharpens the mind's ability to gather intelligence and make strategic decisions. Historical figures besides Stalin have exemplified this mastery of silence and observation. Take Warren Buffett, the legendary investor known for his measured speech and preference to listen more than talk. Buffett's reputation for calm, thoughtful analysis has helped him make shrewd investment decisions and maintain respect in the fiercely competitive world of finance. His silence is a strategic choice that commands attention and respect, proving that sometimes less truly is more. Another example is the great basketball coach Phil Jackson, often referred to as the Zen Master. Jackson's coaching style emphasized patience, listening, and minimal verbal interference during games. His players learned to trust his quiet confidence and strategic silence, knowing that he was always observing, analyzing, and ready to guide them at the right moment. This approach helped him lead multiple championship-winning teams, underscoring the power of silence in leadership. Silence also protects against emotional reactivity, a common pitfall in power struggles. Those who speak impulsively or reveal too much often expose vulnerabilities that adversaries can exploit. By contrast, the silent strategist controls emotions and tempers responses, preventing others from gaining leverage. This restraint is a demonstration of strength, signaling that one is not easily rattled or manipulated. In negotiations, silence can be a powerful tactic. When one side falls silent after a proposal or demand, it places pressure on the other to fill the void, often leading them to reveal concessions or make mistakes. Silence can be uncomfortable, and discomfort can be leveraged to gain advantage. Those who harness this discomfort can shift the balance of power in their favor without uttering a word. In the digital age, where constant communication is the norm, the value of silence can be easily overlooked. Yet, the strategic use of silence, whether in meetings, emails, or social media interactions, remains crucial. Choosing not to respond immediately or refraining from oversharing can protect one's image and maintain a position of strength. In fact, some of the most influential figures today, from business leaders to politicians, carefully curate their communication to preserve mystery and avoid unnecessary exposure. The psychological impact of silence is also deeply rooted in human nature. People instinctively seek to understand others, but when faced with silence, they're left to fill in gaps with their own imaginations. This uncertainty can cause anxiety and hesitation, which a powerful person can exploit to maintain control. Silence becomes a subtle form of psychological warfare, keeping opponents off balance and uncertain. In summary, silence is not simply the absence of noise. It is a deliberate, strategic choice that serves as a powerful instrument in the arsenal of those who seek influence and control. It creates space for observation, fosters mystery, protects against vulnerability, and exerts psychological pressure on others. The power of silence, as exemplified by Stalin and countless other leaders, shows that true strength often lies in what is left unsaid. Mastering silence and observation is essential for anyone who wants to wield power effectively and navigate complex social and political landscapes with confidence. It's a testament to trust, honor, and unwavering support. But the harsh truth, which history and experience consistently reveal, is that loyalty is rarely absolute or unconditional. Instead, it is frequently transactional, conditional, and driven by self-interest. People are loyal not to ideals or individuals alone, but to what serves their own needs and ambitions, or personal relationships. The ancient story of Julius Caesar and Brutus is perhaps the most famous illustration. Caesar, who had risen to the pinnacle of Roman power, was stabbed to death on the floor of the Senate by a group of conspirators, including Brutus, a man he considered not just a trusted ally, but almost a son. The betrayal was not simply a political coup. It was a deeply personal wound. Caesar's final words reportedly acknowledged the pain of this betrayal with the phrase, "Et tu, Brute? You too, Brutus?" This moment encapsulates the cruel lesson that loyalty can be deceiving and that the closest allies may turn into the deadliest enemies when their interests shift. In modern workplaces, this ancient dynamic plays out in surprisingly similar ways. Colleagues who share camaraderie over Friday drinks might be quietly updating their resumes over the weekend, preparing to take your position. The very people who seem to support you can, under pressure or opportunity, choose self-preservation or advancement over loyalty. Recognizing the conditional nature of loyalty involves observing behaviors and patterns rather than accepting promises at face value. People who consistently align their actions with their own benefit, who shift loyalties quickly when circumstances change, or who communicate more with those higher up the hierarchy than with peers, are often signaling where their true allegiance lies. Being aware of these signals doesn't mean adopting a paranoid outlook, but rather cultivating a realistic perspective that prepares you for the possibility of disloyalty. Preparation for betrayal is equally critical. It involves building resilience and contingency plans to mitigate damage when trusted allies turn against you. One way to do this is by diversifying your network of relationships and resources so that your power and influence do not rest solely in the hands of a few individuals. For example, a business leader who relies exclusively on one key partner for success is vulnerable if that partner decides to defect or undermine them. By cultivating multiple alliances and maintaining independence, you reduce the risk of catastrophic fallout. Another key strategy is maintaining a controlled amount of transparency. Oversharing your plans, weaknesses, or internal struggles with those who might exploit them is inviting betrayal. This doesn't mean fostering an environment of mistrust, but rather exercising discretion and keeping your cards close to your chest. The less others know about your vulnerabilities or intentions, the less ammunition they have to use against you. Historical and contemporary examples abound to illustrate these principles. In corporate restructurings, it is common to see sudden shifts in loyalty. Those who seemed inseparable colleagues become competitors overnight. The entertainment industry provides numerous cases where entourages and advisors abandon stars once the spotlight fades, prioritizing their own survival or gain. These stories emphasize that loyalty is often tied to the ebb and flow of power and opportunity. Understanding these dynamics also requires a shift in mindset. Rather than viewing loyalty as a guarantee or a moral given, it should be seen as a strategic asset, one that can be gained, maintained, or lost depending on the context. This doesn't mean abandoning ethics or humanity, but recognizing that power structures operate on principles that transcend personal feelings. A leader or individual who acknowledges this truth can better navigate alliances, foster realistic expectations, and act proactively. At a personal level, you become less dependent on others for your sense of security and success. You learn to read situations and people more astutely, or subtly testing the loyalty of key players. In summary, loyalty is a fragile and often conditional commodity in the landscape of power. The betrayal of Julius Caesar by Brutus remains a timeless cautionary tale, illustrating that even the closest bonds can shatter when self-interest prevails. Modern professional environments mirror this reality, where allegiance can be as fleeting as opportunity. Recognizing the transactional nature of loyalty, staying vigilant to behavioral cues, and preparing contingencies are essential strategies for anyone seeking to survive and thrive amidst the ever-shifting tides of trust and betrayal. Power often gets misunderstood as something rooted purely in emotions, respect, love, admiration, or fear. While these elements can play a role, real, lasting power is less about feelings and more about leverage. Leverage means having something the other person needs, values, or cannot easily replace. It is the currency that truly governs influence, control, and authority. Unlike power based on affection or popularity, which is fragile and often fleeting, leverage creates tangible dependencies. When you hold leverage, you control resources, information, or connections critical to others' success or survival. And this transforms relationships from voluntary goodwill to structured obligation. The difference between emotional power and leverage-based power is stark. Emotional power depends on others' feelings toward you, whether they like or respect you. This kind of power is precarious because emotions are changeable and subjective. A shift in mood, a personal grievance, or a better offer from someone else can dissolve this power overnight. Leverage, on the other hand, is rooted in objective reality, control over resources, access, or knowledge that others need. It forces people to act in your favor, not because they want to, but because they have to. This creates a more stable and durable form of influence, less susceptible to whims or sentiments. A personal example illustrates this vividly. In one of my early ventures, I faced a situation where a business partner was quietly plotting to push me out. The stakes were high. This wasn't just a disagreement, but a battle for control. Instead of confronting him head-on or reacting emotionally, I shifted my focus to strengthening relationships with our 3 biggest clients. I made sure they were aware that I might be starting a new venture soon, implying that I had influence and options beyond the current partnership. Within 48 hours, the dynamics changed. Those clients started questioning the partner's position, and he found himself on the defensive, eventually being asked to leave. I didn't threaten or argue. I activated leverage. By controlling essential relationships, I turned the tables and protected my interests. This story highlights several critical aspects of leverage. It is about control, necessity, and exclusivity. To build leverage effectively, you must become indispensable in ways that matter. This can mean mastering a unique skill, controlling key information, managing critical resources, or cultivating exclusive connections. The goal is to create situations where others cannot succeed or operate effectively without your involvement. Building personal leverage begins with identifying what others depend on or desire within your sphere. This requires awareness and strategic thinking. For example, in a corporate setting, if you're the only person who understands a complex system, has deep knowledge of a client's needs, or controls access to important networks, you hold leverage. Similarly, entrepreneurs who own patents, exclusive partnerships, or proprietary technology wield significant power because others cannot replicate what they offer. Once you identify your sources of leverage, the next step is to nurture and protect them. Relationships must be maintained with care and authenticity, as burning bridges can destroy leverage quickly. Information should be managed wisely, sharing selectively, avoiding unnecessary exposure, and always staying ahead in knowledge. Resources under your control should be safeguarded and aligned with your strategic goals. Another vital component is the perception of leverage. Even if your actual power is limited, projecting the image that you control critical assets or connections can enhance your influence. People tend to avoid crossing those they believe have power, regardless of whether that power is fully real or partially perceived. This is why confidence, clear communication, and discretion are essential in leveraging your position. It's also important to understand that leverage is not about coercion or manipulation alone. Ethical use of leverage builds trust through competence and reliability. When people see that you consistently deliver value and act strategically, they are more likely to accept your leadership or influence willingly. The best leaders combine leverage with credibility, creating power that is both effective and sustainable. Furthermore, leverage can be layered and diversified. Don't rely solely on one source of power. Cultivate multiple avenues so that if one weakens, others remain intact. For example, beyond client relationships, develop expertise that few possess, build alliances with key stakeholders, or gain access to influential networks. This diversity creates resilience against shifting power dynamics or betrayals. A practical way to start building leverage is by asking, what do people around me need or want that I can provide better than anyone else? How can I deepen my involvement in these areas? How can I become the go-to person in critical matters? These questions push you to focus on value creation and strategic positioning rather than emotional appeal. Also, be aware of how leverage influences loyalty. People who depend on you for success or survival are more likely to stay aligned with your interests, even when emotions run cold. This transactional loyalty may lack warmth, but offers stability that emotional bonds alone cannot guarantee. In volatile environments like business or politics, this is often the difference between surviving and being ousted. In the digital age, leverage can also come from control over data, platforms, or specialized knowledge. Influencers, for example, hold leverage through their audiences and reach. Professionals who cultivate niche expertise or unique intellectual property command significant power in their fields. Recognizing where these levers exist in your context and how to harness them is key to modern power strategies. Ultimately, building power through leverage means shifting your mindset from "how can I be liked?" to "how can I be necessary?" This subtle but profound change transforms how you operate and how others respond to you. It encourages strategic thinking, patience. It is about turning dependencies into sources of strength and creating a landscape where your power is embedded in the very fabric of other success. This approach ensures that your influence is not fragile or fleeting, but robust, respected, and sustainable. In the complex dance of power, how you respond to challenges often matters more than the challenges themselves. There's a fundamental difference between reacting impulsively and responding strategically, a distinction that separates those who survive and thrive in high-stakes environments from those who falter and fall. Reacting is an emotional, often instantaneous response driven by feelings such as anger, fear, or frustration. It is raw, unfiltered, and usually predictable. Responding, on the other hand, is deliberate, calculated, and controlled. It involves pausing to assess the situation, understanding the motivations of others, and choosing an action that maximizes your advantage while minimizing risk. Mastering this art of strategic response is crucial for anyone who wants to wield power effectively. Take, for example, the infamous gangster Al Capone during the Chicago gang wars of the 1920s. When 7 members of Bugs Moran's gang were executed in the notorious St. Valentine's Day massacre, Capone's rivals expected a swift and violent retaliation. What many didn't realize was that Capone wasn't even in Chicago that day. He was in Florida, carefully establishing a public alibi while his team carried out the plan. His response was not a reckless emotional outburst, but a meticulously planned operation designed to send a clear message without exposing himself to danger or impulsive backlash. This calculated response not only eliminated his rivals, but also reinforced his image as a ruthless and untouchable figure. Capone's example underscores the power of responding rather than reacting. By controlling his emotions and the timing of his actions, he maintained dominance and outmaneuvered his enemies. The difference between reacting and responding can be seen in everyday life as well. When someone insults or challenges you, the instinctive reaction might be to lash out, defend yourself vehemently, or try to prove your point aggressively. This reaction often escalates conflict and reveals vulnerabilities, giving your adversaries leverage. In contrast, a strategic response involves taking a moment to breathe, analyze the situation, and craft a measured reply that defuses tension or shifts the power balance in your favor. This might mean responding with calm questions, redirecting the conversation, or simply remaining silent to let your opponent expose their weaknesses. The strategic responder controls the narrative and keeps the upper hand by managing their emotions and actions. Emotional mastery is central to this concept. Power struggles frequently hinge on emotional control because emotions can cloud judgment and provoke impulsive decisions. Those who lose control in moments of stress or attack often provide openings for exploitation. Emotional reactions can lead to regret, damaged relationships, and lost opportunities. On the other hand, those who master their emotions can maintain clarity, foresee consequences, and execute plans with precision. Developing this emotional control requires self-awareness and discipline. It starts with recognizing your emotional triggers and understanding how they influence your behavior. For instance, anger might push you toward confrontation, while fear might make you withdraw prematurely. By becoming aware of these impulses, you create the space to choose a different course of action, one based on strategy rather than impulse. Techniques such as mindfulness, deliberate breathing, and mental rehearsals can help cultivate this awareness. Mindfulness trains you to observe your emotions without immediately reacting, creating a pause that allows for more thoughtful decision-making. Deliberate breathing slows physiological responses to stress, helping you maintain composure. Mental rehearsals prepare you for potential confrontations by imagining various scenarios and planning your responses in advance. The benefits of mastering emotional responses extend beyond avoiding mistakes. Strategic responders project confidence and control, qualities that intimidate opponents and inspire allies. When others see that you remain calm under pressure, they perceive you as a leader who is not easily rattled, which enhances your influence and credibility. Historical leaders demonstrate the power of this approach as well. Figures like Nelson Mandela exhibited remarkable emotional control, choosing forgiveness and patience over revenge after decades of imprisonment. This strategic restraint ultimately strengthened his position and legacy. Similarly, in business, Leaders who respond to crises with measured calm rather than panic are more likely to steer their organizations through turbulent times successfully. In practical terms, responding rather than reacting also involves timing. Sometimes, the best response is to wait to allow emotions to settle and gather more information before acting. Impulsive reactions often come with incomplete information and can be counterproductive. Strategic timing means choosing moments when your actions will have maximum impact and your adversaries will be least prepared. Moreover, responding effectively requires understanding your opponent's psychology and vulnerabilities. Like a skilled chess player, you anticipate moves and countermoves, exploiting weaknesses without exposing your own. This level of strategic thinking is possible only when emotions are kept in check, allowing clear, rational analysis. In daily interactions, adopting this mindset transforms how you handle criticism, conflict, and pressure. Instead of feeling threatened or defensive, you see challenges as opportunities to demonstrate control and strength. You learn to listen actively, ask probing questions, and redirect conversations to your advantage. This approach not only preserves relationships, but also builds your reputation as a composed and effective leader. Ultimately, the ability to respond strategically rather than react emotionally is a hallmark of true power. It distinguishes the untouchable from the vulnerable, the victorious from the defeated. Al Capone's calculated retaliation is a vivid historical example. But this principle applies universally from boardrooms and battlefields to everyday personal interactions. Mastering your emotions, controlling your responses, and choosing your actions with intention will empower you to navigate the complexities of power with confidence and resilience. True power often thrives in the shadows, where control is exercised without fanfare, credit, or overt displays of dominance. The idea of control without credit captures a crucial and sophisticated form of power, one that operates behind the scenes, invisible yet profoundly influential. This kind of power is not about seeking applause or public recognition, but about shaping outcomes, directing decisions, and influencing people while remaining largely unseen. It is the power of the puppet master rather than the star performer, the architect rather than the actor. Mastering this indirect form of power allows individuals to wield immense influence without attracting envy, scrutiny, or direct opposition, making it both effective and sustainable. One of the most striking historical examples of this principle is J. Edgar Hoover, the long-serving director of the FBI. Hoover maintained an iron grip on American politics for decades without ever holding elected office or publicly showcasing his power. His influence stemmed from his vast network of intelligence, comprising sensitive information and secrets about politicians, judges, and influential figures. Hoover's files contained enough material to ruin careers and silence dissent, creating an atmosphere where crossing him was simply too risky. People didn't need explicit threats or public confrontations to fall in line. The mere knowledge that Hoover held damaging information was enough to ensure compliance. Hoover's approach to power illustrates how indirect control can be far more potent than overt authority. He rarely needed to issue commands or take visible action. His reputation and the potential consequences of defying him did the heavy lifting. This created a form of invisible power, one that shaped policy, influenced presidential decisions, and controlled political narratives without the need for public acknowledgement or credit. Hoover understood that visibility invites envy and sabotage, so he cultivated an aura of quiet omnipresence, a force felt but seldom seen. Applying this concept of indirect and invisible power in today's world requires a shift in mindset. Rather than seeking the spotlight or public accolades, one must focus on building influence through control of key information, resources, and relationships. It means becoming indispensable behind the scenes, someone whose input and decisions shape outcomes, even when they're not front and center. In the corporate environment, this might look like a senior executive who avoids the limelight, but controls access to crucial data, manages critical stakeholder relationships, or influences the flow of information to decision makers. Their power lies in their ability to steer conversations, frame issues, and make themselves indispensable without taking public credit. Such individuals often become the go-to advisors or power brokers within organizations because they can effect change quietly and efficiently. The first step toward harnessing this kind of power is to cultivate deep expertise and knowledge that others depend upon. Expertise is a form of leverage that often operates invisibly but is critical to influence. When your insights or skills are essential to solving problems or advancing goals, you naturally gain control. This requires continuous learning, staying ahead of industry trends, and being the person who holds the answers others seek. Next is the strategic management of relationships. Power rarely exists in isolation, so building and maintaining alliances with influential people is vital. These relationships should be based on mutual benefit and trust, but also managed discreetly. Instead of openly competing for attention, focus on collaboration behind the scenes, providing value quietly and consistently. This approach creates a network of allies who can amplify your influence without exposing you to direct confrontation. Controlling information flow is another critical element. Being the gatekeeper of knowledge, deciding what, when, and how information is shared grants you subtle yet powerful influence. This doesn't mean manipulating facts dishonestly, but rather managing communication strategically to shape perceptions and guide decisions. Information asymmetry, the condition where you know more than others, gives you a natural advantage. The less others know about your plans or true capabilities, the harder it is for them to undermine you. In the digital age, indirect power also extends to managing one's personal and professional brand carefully. Oversharing or constant self-promotion can attract unwanted attention and criticism, undermining your authority. Instead, maintaining a low profile, selectively revealing accomplishments, and letting your results speak for themselves can cultivate respect and mystery. People often trust and fear those whose power is suggested but not loudly proclaimed. The psychological impact of this invisible control is profound. When others suspect that you hold significant but unseen power, they tread carefully. Uncertainty breeds caution, which in turn reinforces your position. By contrast, overt displays of power invite challenge and resistance, as people are more likely to question or confront those in the spotlight. The invisible hand is therefore a safer and more enduring way to maintain authority. Practical examples abound in everyday life. Consider the role of a skilled mediator or counselor who never commands but influences outcomes through careful listening, subtle guidance, and the ability to connect people's interests. Their power lies not in orders, but in their capacity to shape perspectives and decisions quietly. Similarly, in politics, behind-the-scenes advisors, strategists, and intelligence operatives hold enormous sway without public recognition. To cultivate this style of power, start by focusing on building unique capabilities and expertise that others find hard to replace. Invest in relationships thoughtfully. Seek opportunities to support others' success without immediate recognition, and learn to manage information flow with discretion. Practice patience, knowing that indirect influence often requires time to build and can be easily lost if exposed prematurely. Moreover, humility and discretion are your allies. The less you seek credit, the less envy you provoke, and the more secure your position becomes. This approach is not about hiding out of fear, but about strategic self-presentation. It is about being everywhere and nowhere simultaneously, shaping outcomes invisibly while others vie for the spotlight. In a world obsessed with visibility and instant gratification, mastering the art of invisible power offers a profound advantage. It requires restraint, strategic thinking, and emotional intelligence, but the rewards are significant. By controlling without credit, you gain influence that endures beyond fleeting moments of fame or recognition. allowing you to navigate complex social and professional landscapes with subtlety and strength. This quiet mastery of power makes you not only effective but untouchable. Becoming untouchable in a world riddled with betrayal is no fairy tale. It's a strategic journey rooted in understanding the brutal realities of power and mastering timeless principles that govern human behavior. The lessons drawn from history, philosophy, and real-life experiences converge on a clear truth. Power is less about brute strength or popularity and more about perception, control, and calculated action. To navigate this landscape effectively, one must internalize key insights that transform vulnerability into resilience and uncertainty into influence. First, the power of perception cannot be overstated. As Machiavelli taught, it is often more important to appear strong than to be strong. This means cultivating an image of confidence and control, even in moments of internal struggle. Never bleed in front of wolves. Protect your vulnerabilities because showing weakness invites attack. Your outer presentation creates a reality that others respond to, shaping their behavior toward you. This principle is immediately actionable whether in meetings, social interactions, or digital communication. Maintain composure and project strength consistently. Second, silence and observation are invaluable tools. The loudest voice rarely controls the conversation. Instead, the one who listens, watches, and speaks sparingly wields the greatest influence. Strategic silence creates mystery and forces others to reveal more than they intend, giving you critical information and psychological leverage. Practicing this requires patience and restraint, but pays dividends in better decision-making and stronger positioning. Third, loyalty is rarely unconditional. The painful story of Caesar and Brutus reminds us that even those closest to us may turn when their interests change. Understanding loyalty as transactional rather than absolute prepares you to anticipate betrayal and build systems of leverage that make you indispensable. Building leverage through unique skills, exclusive connections, and control over resources creates dependencies that anchor others to your success beyond mere affection or respect. Fourth, how you respond matters more than what happens to you. The difference between reacting emotionally and responding strategically can determine your survival. Emotional reactions expose vulnerabilities. Measure responses protect and strengthen your position. Learning to master your emotions, delay impulsive actions, and choose your moments carefully transforms challenges into opportunities. Fifth, power is most potent when wielded invisibly. Controlling outcomes without seeking credit shields you from envy and opposition while allowing you to shape events behind the scenes. Like J. Edgar Hoover's quiet influence over American politics, mastering indirect power means becoming the unseen hand that guides rather than the spotlighted figure subject to attack. Putting these lessons into practice starts with mindset. Recognize that power is a game of strategy, perception, and discipline, not a matter of luck or force. Begin by controlling your image. Cultivate confidence, manage your communication, and shield your vulnerabilities. Embrace silence and observation as strengths, not weaknesses. Build and protect your leverage by becoming indispensable in ways others cannot easily replicate. Train yourself to respond with calm calculation rather than emotional impulse. And finally, focus on influence rather than fame, letting your power operate subtly and effectively. Practical steps you can take immediately include assessing your current sources of leverage and identifying areas where you can increase your indispensability. Pay attention to how you communicate, aiming to project steadiness and control even under pressure. Practice listening more than speaking in conversations, using silence strategically to gather information and shift dynamics. Reflect on your emotional triggers and develop techniques such as mindfulness or breathing exercises to maintain composure. Begin cultivating relationships that expand your influence quietly but meaningfully. Remember, becoming untouchable is not reserved for the naturally powerful or the lucky few. It is an attainable goal for anyone willing to study, adapt, and apply these timeless strategies consistently. Power is not about domination, but survival and influence within complex social systems. When you understand and master the principles outlined, you gain a form of resilience that protects you from the chaos of betrayal and the volatility of human nature. You have within you the capacity to become untouchable. It starts with awareness and commitment to growth. With patience, discipline, and strategic action, you can rise above the fray, navigate treacherous waters, and command respect and influence that endure. This is not about cynicism or ruthless ambition, but about empowerment and self-preservation in a world that often rewards the savvy and punishes the naive. The path to being untouchable is challenging but clear, and the rewards security, influence, and peace of mind are well worth the effort. Now that you've walked through the unvarnished truths of power, from the deadly consequences of revealing weakness to the silent strength of observation, from the transactional nature of loyalty to the subtle art of strategic response, it's clear that being untouchable isn't about magic or luck. It's about mastering timeless principles and adapting them to your life. You've learned that power is forged in the crucible of perception, that what you project often matters more than what you feel. Remember, his downfall came not from inability, but from showing vulnerability at the wrong time. That moment was enough to give others the opening to strike. This isn't a call to be cold or deceptive, but a call to master your image with intention and discipline. You've seen how silence can be your greatest ally, much like Stalin's quiet command in the halls of power. Speaking less, observing more, and letting others reveal their cards first puts you in the driver's seat. Silence isn't emptiness, it's strategy. Loyalty, as brutal history shows, is transactional. From Caesar's betrayal by Brutus to everyday corporate backstabbing, trust is fragile and contingent on your value. Building leverage through unique skills, relationships, or a control of critical resources secures your position in ways feelings never can. And when attacked, responding thoughtfully rather than reacting emotionally is the difference between survival and ruin. Al Capone's calculated retaliation teaches us that timing and control trump raw emotion every time. Lastly, the power you wield is most effective when unseen. Like J. Edgar Hoover, who controlled decades of American politics from behind the curtain, you too can become the architect of outcomes without seeking the spotlight, avoiding envy and sabotage. If you take away only one thing from this video, let it be this: becoming untouchable is a skill. It is a mindset. It is a commitment to understanding human nature and mastering yourself before trying to master others. You don't have to be born powerful or ruthless. You only need to be willing to learn, adapt, and act deliberately. So, what can you do right now to start? Begin with your image. Monitor how you appear to others, especially under pressure. Practice silence strategically. Listen more than you speak. Build your leverage by becoming indispensable in your sphere. When faced with conflict, pause, breathe, and choose your response. And remember, seek influence, not applause. If you found value in this video, please hit that like button, share it with those you care about. And if you haven't already, subscribe and ring the bell so you never miss insights that could change your life. If you want to support the channel's mission to deliver raw, unfiltered truth about power and survival, please consider leaving a super thanks donation. Your generosity helps keep this channel running and growing. The path to becoming untouchable is demanding but achievable. With the right mindset and strategies, you can rise above betrayal, confusion, and chaos, becoming someone no one can easily break, manipulate, or dismiss. Thank you for watching. Stay sharp, stay silent when it counts, and remember, power belongs to those who understand it deeply and wield it wisely.